Hello and welcome to the Discover History YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos on the channel, you'll know I have a big interest in the Battle of Waterloo. I'm not going to talk about that today because there's another part of the Napoleonic Wars I really find fascinating too. And that is a period when Napoleon's back was really up against the wall in the months leading up to his abdication and exile on Elba. Now, just as I can remember exactly what sparked my interest in Waterloo, I know exactly what sparked my interest in this period in Napoleonic history, and that is this painting by Horace Vernet. I've had this print in my collection now for over 20 years, but I fell in love with it a lot earlier than that, many years earlier than that, when it was the cover art for an LP I had of Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture. Now, ironically, this painting isn't from the 1812 campaign. This is the Battle of Hanau in 1813, and that is what I want to talk about today. Before we start to describe the picture and what it portrays, a bit of background context is always useful. So, 1812, Napoleon is at the height of his power in Northern Europe, still fighting the British in the Peninsula and the Portuguese. But in Europe, he is at the height of his power. He's only got one enemy left in Europe, and that is Russia. He's defeated everyone else, even the Austrians and the Prussians who he'd fought against are now allied with him. So, height of his power, and in June 1812, he invades Russia, get rid of that last enemy. Probably the worst thing he could have done, biggest disaster in his career other than Waterloo. So 1812, June, he invades Russia, and few small battles, one massive, brutal, inconclusive battle, the occupation and burning of Moscow. Later, his army is forced to retreat back out of Russia in the harsh Russian winter. When he leaves Russian territory, his army is a shadow, it's a spent force of its former self. Estimates range from between 22,000 men left to 120,000, depending on whose figures you look at. So once he's out of Russian territory, a ceasefire is proclaimed. This lasts for a while, but plans are being drawn up. Napoleon's back in France and he's raising more armies. The Allied side, the Sixth Coalition, is formed with Russia, the UK, Sweden, and his erstwhile allies, Prussia and Austria, and a few states of the Russian Confederation that were allied with him, basically formed this coalition against him. In spring 1813, Germany became the new battleground. In May, the French won the battles of Lutzen and Bautzen, and his enemies retired before him. A truce lasted all summer before Napoleon was forced to retreat west as new forces were set in motion against him. The climactic battle of this campaign occurred at Leipzig, the so-called Battle of Nations, in October. 3 days, Napoleon's 225,000 fought against the Sixth Coalition's 380,000, and it was a brutal battle, and Napoleon was defeated. On the 19th of October, he retreated westward with 100,000 survivors. And this is where this painting comes in. Napoleon is heading for Frankfurt. There he will then, after that, he will cross the Rhine and enter French territory. But just a few miles east of Frankfurt, the small town of Hanau, he encounters a mixed Austrian and Bavarian army, 42,000 strong, under Count Reed. Now, the Bavarians, of course, have been allies of Napoleon. They were part of the Confederation of the Rhine, the small German states that allied themselves after being conquered to Napoleon. They were still part of his empire in 1812. But after that disastrous campaign, they started to break up and break away. The Bavarians had hedged their bets a bit, and it's only just recently that they had changed their allegiance to the Sixth Coalition. At Hanau, the Bavarians made a bit, and Reed made a bit of a tactical error. The battlefield, his right wing and his centre and left wing were split by the Kinvig River, and the only thing connecting them was one bridge, a narrow bridge over that river. He also had a loop of the Vig River to the rear of his centre and his left wing. Not the best tactical dispositions. Napoleon did say of Reed, I can make him a count, but I can't make him a general. So on the 30th of October, they start to clash. Reed thinks he's facing just a small part of Napoleon's army. Napoleon actually musters about 17,000 men against this large Austrian-Bavarian force. The ground to the east of Hanau is wooded. It's very wooded. There was some skirmishing in the woods, forcing the Allies back. But then Drouot, his commander of his Imperial Guard artillery, finds a path through these woods, which will put him against Reed's left. Now on his left, Reed has assembled 28 cannon and most of his cavalry. The Imperial Guard infantry is sent through, they clear the woods, and Drouot brings his cannon up, and he arranges 50 cannon on the edge of the woods to start firing on this mass battery of Bavarian artillery. He's supported by the Imperial Guard cavalry and some line cavalry as well. And this is what the painting shows. It's a Mariota cavalry battle, and what the painting shows is that the Bavarian cavalry have attacked the French gun lines, and they are in turn being attacked by the Imperial Guard cavalry, and you've got some Imperial Guard infantry coming up through to the rescue as well. Right in the centre of the painting is Drouot himself, about to be assailed by a Bavarian cavalryman, but that is basically what this painting shows: an attack by Bavarian cavalry against the French gun lines. Of course, the Bavarians are driven off. French cavalry attack more, drive them off. They can't get across the river, of course, it's to their back. So they start to try and get their way back to the bridge. Reinforcements from south of the bridge, from Reed's right, try to get across the bridge. Many of them drown in doing so and getting across the river. Basically, he's left and his centre collapse. He retreats back into Hanau. There's some skirmishing there overnight during the evening, and overnight Reed evacuates Hanau and moves away. Napoleon doesn't follow him up. He occupies Hanau and then carries on his way. He doesn't bother with this small force. He's just knocked out of his way. He carries on and back into France. And then there was another truce. This lasted all winter, and then in January 1814, Sixth Coalition invaded France itself. Now this is what I really found fascinating. Napoleon has this ability. He raises more men. They are not veterans. He raises young men to fight, what called the Marie-Louises. These are unskilled fighters. Most of his armies have been destroyed in Russia, at Leipzig, but he has the Imperial Guard to count on. So for 3 months in 1814, he gives the Sixth Coalition the runaround. He basically gives the Prussians a bloody nose a few times, and the Austrians, until finally everything turns against him. He's only got 80,000 men in France against this massive coalition. Can't fight forever. Everything starts to turn against him with his generals and his marshals, and eventually, of course, they can get round his side. He's fighting on a small front. They can outmaneuver him. So eventually he has to retire. And then that leads up to, of course, to everyone losing faith. He's forced to abdicate, and then he gets exiled to Elba. Now, of course, he's there for less than a year. He comes back in March 1815, and then you get the Battle of Waterloo 100 days later. But it's a fascinating part of Napoleonic history. Up against the wall, his genius shines through. He can move men around. He's able to raise more men. He's able to move them around, give these forces a bloody nose. And it is when he's relying a lot on the Imperial Guard, his veteran troops, to keep fighting. Of course, eventually he can't do, and he has to abdicate. So I hope you enjoyed this video. This painting, I love it. It's a fantastic painting. But like I say, it's a small, insignificant battle in the whole context of 1812 to 1814. But it's a beautiful painting. I hope you enjoyed the video. It is a quick look through at that period of history. It's fascinating. I'd recommend anyone who wants to really know about the Napoleonic Wars to read David Chandler's Campaigns of Napoleon. If you want to know about the Imperial Guard, there's a book called Anatomy of Glory. Massive book, really insightful into history of the Imperial Guard. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. Please keep safe, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Bye.